Hello again, everybody. Here's another drive along video that I'm doing today. I wanted to talk about Bitcoin, and I wanted to talk about how Bitcoin is going up by holding steady, meaning that Bitcoin is basically, well, it's gone up recently, but it's been basically between $25,000 and $30,000 for a long time. But the fact that it's holding its ground is actually a positive sign. Let me explain that a little bit. When you price things in a currency, okay, you're also dependent upon the stability of that currency to reflect value. And that's going to take a little bit of unpacking. Let's just say, like, if I price gold in dollars, euro, yen, won, British pound, all these different currencies, most people are going to quote the price of gold in an ounce as being in the U.S. dollar, which is somewhere in the range of $1,900 to $2,000, give or take, any given day lately. Now, same thing with silver being in between 20 and 25 bucks. Okay, that's the price in America because we use the dollar. Overseas, in the last couple of years, the dollar has already hit, or excuse me, the gold ounce has already hit an all-time high in other currencies, because those currencies were not as strong as the dollar. Well, this is part of the nature of questioning the strength of the dollar and how they manipulate the dollar. So we all know that in America, we're seeing inflation, we're seeing prices go up. I think I heard that Halloween candy's up 13%, Christmas prices are going to go up, gas, food, all these things are going up way higher than what the inflation rate they're announcing as actually being. So if inflation is going up, say 1 to 2% a month, but Bitcoin is flat, Bitcoin is actually gaining a couple percent because you're measuring it in something that's losing value. It's kind of like, as I'm driving on the highway, the analogy that comes right to mind, I'm going this way, other cars are going this way, we're passing each other. The dollar is going down, Bitcoin is going up. So because Bitcoin is holding stable relative to the dollar up before the last 2 weeks in a 25 to 30K range, it's actually holding ground or gaining ground against the purchasing power of the dollar and certainly other currencies in the world. Now, Argentina is, and instabilities in other countries through wars or conflict or elections, it always happens, but it's certainly higher right now. And as currencies have issues, you're seeing flights to security or flights, I forget, I think Peter Schiff had a different term, like flight to rarity or flight to quality. I heard this term, it might not have been Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff might have said flight to quality, but it might be somebody else. But in any regard, the people are looking for safe havens for their value, for their store of wealth. It used to be real estate, it used to be gold. Gold's doing well. Silver holds value over time, but Bitcoin is at a tipping point in the next year or so because the halving comes in 2024. Now that is a shock to the supply of Bitcoin. It gets cut in half. Right now we're making 900 Bitcoin a year, the network is. So every 10 minutes someone gets rewarded with a certain amount of Bitcoin. See, 900 divided by 24, that's 36. It's like 6.25 every 10 minutes. And that's going to be cut down to 3.125 sometime middle of next year. I think it's about April or May. So that's a supply shock. So when that supply shock happens, imagine that there's like half as much gold in the world or half as much silver. It's a shock, and it takes a while to it's priced in because they know it's coming, but it also has to play out. So the halving comes and goes. The price does not really move that much typically what happens. And I think this is going to be the fourth halving for Bitcoin. Say 4, 8, 12. This is probably the third halving. Regardless, it's a halving coming in 2024. So 2024, 2020, 2016. There was one in 2012. Okay, so we're getting there. So it's moving along, and it's reflected in the people that know. But as people learn later on that it's going to be, instead of 900 a day, it's 450 a day. And quite honestly, in 5 years, less than 5 years, it's going to be 225 a day. It's going to be cut by 75%, half then half again. So that supply shock matters, and it takes a while, about 6 months or so, to really kick in. So about this time next year is when the spikes really are supposed to be coming, which happens to be right around U.S. election time. Funny how that works. but I'm not sure if that was intentionally done, maybe, but certainly Bitcoin is going to go up significantly if history is our trend, or history is indicative of what happens. Bitcoin could be well over $100,000 in 18 months or less. So, and why is that? Supply shock, a flight to quality, a flight to rarity, a flight to better. It beats gold in so many different ways. Gold has always been the safe haven for currencies throughout the world for thousands of years, because paper currencies don't last. Fiat currencies, or currencies by decree by a government, have value only because the government says so. So this government gets to be suspect, or they start losing trade routes, or they start losing world dominance in either military, or with their currency suffers too. So that could be the position that the U.S. is trickling into. And as for those of you who have watched in the past the history of the history of the gold standard, when Britain lost the gold standard, they went off the gold standard officially in 1913, right before World War II. No one in World War I. No one entering World War I or involved in World War I could hold the gold standard, except for the U.S. when they got pulled in 1917, I believe, and they were already on the gold standard. They had no reason to go off of it. And after World War I was done, and then World War II happened, there was the Weimar Republic in the 20s, and the Roaring 20s for the U.S., and the Great Depression, and then World War II. After World War II, basically the U.S. had the dominant forces across the board. Trade routes, military strength, all the gold reserve, all the manufacturing, all the stuff the U.S. was dominant. That's why Bretton Woods happened, and the U.S. became the dominant currency. But it took 30 years to move away from the British pound to being the world currency, and that being dominant because of England's dominance all over the globe, and their colonies and their trade routes, and the sun never setting in the British Empire, for the U.S. to take over about 30 years later. It's going to happen faster this time, but it doesn't happen overnight. That's my point. So could it be Bitcoin? Could it be a BRICS currency? Could it be the dollar reemerging? I'm betting against the dollar. So now you've got BRICS is going to try. Bitcoin is certainly trying. You've got El Salvador, you've got the Central African Republic, got lots of other currencies, lots of other countries looking at or using Bitcoin already, or settling transactions. Bitcoin, it could easily triple in value in the next 12 to 18 months. How many other commodities, how many other assets out there can you say that about? Can't really say that about real estate, can't really say that about maybe silver, but I think Bitcoin's got the best chance. Now, could you find another Pepe coin or an altcoin that could go up more than 3x? Yes. And for members of Economic Preppers, I've already talked about the altcoins that I like. I'd say it's between 15 to 20. You can pick and choose which ones you like. That's for our Patreon members and for AMA talks. But there are lots of quality projects that are solving problems there's lots more problems than monetary that need to be solved with blockchain. Voter ID, anything on your resume, property deeds, lots of recorded information that need to be solved, or even video on demand or transactions. It's just, there's lots of other problems that Bitcoin is not the most efficient at solving that can be solved with better implementations of the blockchain. And that's what other altcoins do. So that's a different topic for a different day, but I just wanted to talk about Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, the spike that happened in the last 2 weeks. Let me close with this. The spike that we'll get more into depth with that. I know Thursday night. That's probably when this video comes out. Maybe a little after. Sorry about the timing, but we're doing an AMA with Patrick this week. Our members get to ask questions and find out a little bit more detail. Get Patrick's interpretation on Bitcoin. Get my interpretation, and we get our group sense, what we both are thinking. So lots to talk about Bitcoin. But my opinion on why Bitcoin spiked recently and why it's in the 30s, unrest, geopolitical unrest. That because Bitcoin has no affiliation to any government. So if you have an issue with any government's currency, you're going to go away from that and move your wealth into something else like gold, silver, or Bitcoin. And plus the ETF coming. There's the SEC positivity from XRP winning a judgment in their case, but also Grayscale is one step closer to a Bitcoin ETF. And that deserves its own video. I'm going to do a Bitcoin ETF video next.